Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Adventures in Truth livecast. My name is Jim Case. I am your host. Excited to be here and super excited that you're here. If you've watched the show before, if you've engaged with us before, I appreciate you sharing the live feed. I appreciate you sharing this with your friends and neighbors. Like us, subscribe depending on where you are. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook. We are live on e360tv.com or on the app. And we're also live on my website, www.adventuresintruth.com. So all those great places you can check out the show. Thank you for being part of the show. We appreciate it. We're glad you're here. Today we got a great show. We're back with Moshe Engelberg, the author of The Amari Wave. We're having another conversation with Moshe today. And our conversation with Moshe today is all about dealing with the reality of you can't fix it. You simply can't fix it, any of it. And what does that pertain to? Well, it's really driven off of a book I read years ago as I was beginning my exploration and studies in higher brain living, and there was a book called The Watchman's Rattle. And this book was, I'm gonna cheat from my notes here because I can. Rebecca Acosta wrote the book, and it starts with the question, why can't we solve our problems anymore? And this powerful idea in reality is challenging to embrace, but must be in order to create effective, positive change. And, you know, we are in a time of incredible change, if you haven't noticed, you know, out there in the world. There's a ton of things going on. So the premise of this and the premise of her book, which I think is profound and very, very powerful, is that, and it ties into stuff that Einstein supposedly said as well, that you can't solve a problem from the same space that you created it in. The Watchman's Rattle is a similar type of focus, is that we have created problems beyond our mind's ability to fix. And so that requires something vastly different in our experience. So we're going to dive into that with Moshe today. I think this is going to be a great conversation. Again, I thank you all for being here, and we will be right back. Bum, bum. I got to push my buttons. Be right back. Hey guys, have you ordered your copy? Fear is a Choice book. Check it out, fearisachoicebook.com. Over the next few weeks, we will be doing even more of the focusing into each chapter of the book and kind of diving in and embracing that a little bit more. But before I begin any of that, I want to say thank you. This past month has been amazing. All of you out there who have bought the book, Please continue to share the book. If you've purchased the book, please go and leave your review wherever you purchase the book. www.fearisachoicebook.com is the webpage for the book. You see testimonials. You'll get lots of good information about me and especially where you can order the book, Barnes & Noble and Amazon and IndieBound and all those good places. So check it out. This book is a powerful, powerful, powerful tool. And the other thing that's really cool is I'm coming up on the launch of my book. So at the end of this month will be the actual launch. So we were in pre-sales at this point last year. And I'm so excited with the evolution of where the book has gone and how many people it's reaching. And I hope to continue to reach as many people as possible. Remember that the essence of this book is about changing your relationship with fear. And so if you're looking to radically change that relationship, that's where this book is going to take you. It's going to help you walk through the understanding of the evolution in the human experience. It's going to help you even dive more deeply into your personal experience. And it's one of the things about the book that I think is most profound is that the book takes you into your experience. It doesn't take you into my experience, meaning as you're reading and as you're going through these concepts and ideas, you're continually encouraged to find those dots and connections within your own life experience. And so it begins to evolve change from within as opposed to a Band-Aid from without. And that's a consistent experience that I've had with the book that people have shared, that people reading the book have shared, that it enables you to really begin to change your relationship with fear because you begin to see it in your own reality. And then you can kind of go, wow, okay, I can do something about this. And so that's why this book is so powerful and so profound. www.fearisachoicebook.com. Check it out. Amazing stuff. Thank you if you've ordered it. I appreciate it. Make sure you get those reviews in, and we will be right back. It is the year of conscious creation. Can you believe we are 9.5 months into this year already? Blowing my mind. But my world is good, and it continues to be good. And I hope your world is good. And I hope you join our movement. Join the movement, the year of conscious creation, and my world is good. This is just 7.5 to 8 billion worlds out there, all of you living in your lives, living in your worlds. And I want to introduce this into your world. My world is good. Let us come together in a consistent energy. And in coming together in that consistent energy, we create a tipping point in the mass consciousness of this planet. The mass consciousness being that energy field that surrounds the planet of all the thoughts and beliefs and concepts that we all kind of agree to that hold this physical reality together because it is our focus. But what I want to see is how we impact that mass consciousness in a positive way. We've watched and continue to see how some of the negative impact has been happening. And so as we continue to fill this space with love, as we continue to build My World is Good, we continue to create an incredible momentum of change. And I ask you to be a part of it. And all that's required is your energy, your focus, and your intention. That's it. I don't need your emails. I don't need any of that. I just want your energy here now focused into My World is Good. My world is good. And so part of My World is Good, I think, is going to be a great part of this conversation today is being able to get outside of the mental constraints and constructs that we have about how we create change and how we live through change. So check it out. My World is Good. You see posts all over the place. I love to hear your stories and things of how you're seeing your world good, how you're seeing the goodness start to evolve in your world. I'm seeing it every day in every way. I had to buy a car yesterday, had a very powerful experience and a very easy experience because my world is good. I don't need the drama. I don't need crazy. I want my world to be good, and I want my world to be filled with that goodness. So I encourage you every day to find those things. You start by feeling into it, feeling that my world is good, feeling it deeply, and even more powerfully, if you can focus in appreciation while you're there. Focus into anything that you appreciate in your world and begin to evolve that energy. My world is good. Because remember, no one can create your world but you. No one can live your life but you. So make it the best that it can be. My world is good. Find your joy there. I think you'll find that it's pretty remarkable. We're going to be right back, and we're going to have a terrific show here. We're going to bring Moshe in, and it's going to be excellent. We'll see you in just a few seconds. as I click my buttons. All right, here we go. Here we go. I'm bringing him in. Ready or not, here he comes.
Hello.
Hey, my buddy Moshe is in the house.
Good to be back. It's been a while.
It has. We got to have a very exciting connection this weekend because Moshe is actually here in Colorado right now. So we got to share some kirtan on Sunday and got to see my friend who I haven't got to hug his neck for, Jesus, been quite a while.
It's been a while.
Been a while. So amazing. He's here. We're going to get to spend some time together, and I'm excited about that. But this is even more exciting because we have our last show we had to postpone, and now we're here getting to talk about it. So let's dive in. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. So what do you think about this idea of you can't fix it?
Part of my reaction part of my reaction is I don't like it.
Okay.
The idea is we're so acculturated to the idea of there's a problem, we can solve it. There's a saying in engineering, any problem, if you have the right formulas and the right tools, you can fix it. Marketers, which was my background for many years, think the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it's counter to this kind of power. We can power through it. We just need the right tools.
Yeah.
Another part of me loves it because it makes my world good. I can't control everything. And if I accept that and surrender to that reality, mm-hmm. life is much better.
It is, and it feels less embattled, I think, in a lot of ways, because as I was talking about the intro, the idea of where the problem was created and the consciousness that it was created in, excuse me, versus where the solution is and how to get to that solution. And if we look into the world currently, today, this very minute, this very second in the world, in our country, you see it evolving. I read something this morning. It was a meme actually, and it was and this is not about being political, but I'm using it because it just so purely exemplifies this whole process. So here we are. We've got climate crisis. We've got infrastructure crisis. We've got whatever all the other crises are, voting crises, all these things that are all just crazy and nutty. And the meme said, I find it interesting that the party that controls the government, the Democrats, who have the House and the Senate and all of the power, continue to look for ways to not use it and continue to look for ways to pander to their money and not to their people. And it just struck me because I went, man, this is the same damn thing. This is the same. They're not trying to fix anything because they know they can't. They know they can't. They know that all they can do is push it around until the individuals, and this is where I think it's a little freaky, is that it seems to me that part of the deal is that they know that as long as we the people, as long as we don't do anything, they don't have to do anything. They can continue to run their agendas. Anyway, shifting gears, because the reason I use that particular focus is because it really, I think, demonstrates in a very obvious way how here are all these supposedly enormous problems, and I'm not saying they're not, or allegedly, and yet we can't seem to get movement on change. And that's really what this show is about. It's not about you can't create change or you can't repair things. This is about you can't fix it from the perspective of what Moshe was talking about. We can no longer use willpower to affect anything. I mean, we can, but you can see the results of that around us every single day. The use of willpower in business, in life, in love, in relationships, in growth processes, in how we eat and how we work out, in how we live, in how we buy cars, in how we eat food. It's all pushed with will because it is the foundation. It is a foundation with which fear can be used and wielded unfettered, completely unfettered, because you make it look like you're doing good things when really what you're doing is subverting people's confidence in themselves and in the world that they live in. And again, I'm not trying to be pessimistic or not trying to be any of that. I'm just pointing out what to me is obvious. And the point of this show is to help us migrate to a different perspective so that you don't get stuck in that perspective, because that's just another trap to get stuck in when you start thinking, because you could spend all kinds of hours in that rabbit hole.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And yeah, no, I don't want to go there. So what do you
I
think?
think that's worth diving into a little more, the whole idea of will either not being helpful. I'm not sure if you're saying it's not helpful or it's not sufficient.
I think ultimately, and I think where we are going, it's not helpful, because what it's creating is resistance. Again, let's use the examples that are obvious. Infrastructure seems obvious, right? 72% of the population think it's amazing. Everybody in the world says it's awesome, except a select group of people who aren't going to let it happen. And that's all about using will, because the either side of the argument is forcing its viewpoint and pushing its agenda, and not really focused in the option, not really focused in the solving of a problem. Does that make sense? So they're presenting a solution to an apparent problem, but they're making it about the problem and not about the solution. So the problem becomes the thing that is drummed around and fucked around and messed around, and you keep talking about the problem, and they even telegraph it in the news. Oh, well, by Friday we'll know if this infrastructure bill is going to mean anything to anybody, if it's going to actually go anywhere. While we sit here going, I just ruined a wheel driving through a pothole yesterday. We're living the life of this problem, but the solution, that the place that we've put the solution, is outside of ourselves. Therefore, it is being not therefore, but it is then being it's driven by the will of these individuals who are managed and controlled by the money that serves them. It's kind of a weird thing, and it's multiple layers. So maybe if we take this out of the context of the government, because that gets really, really confused and really layered. So jumping tracks on that. So from my perspective, the will is a function of the ego. The will is a function of the hows. When we use will, we have determined the how, and we are determining how we're going to do something without any real connection or inspiration to what it is we want to create. So when you have a whole bunch of people moving in a whole bunch of different directions doing the same thing, you have what we have now, which is a log jam of will fighting against itself in an attempt to create a solution that will never come, because the solution doesn't exist where they're looking. The solution exists elsewhere. And so that's why I say the will thing is not valuable. And it just feels to me like, and it seems to me as we experience more and more of these changing energies, that will becomes nothing more than another piece of resistance. Because it's not taking time to go in here to find solutions so that you can generate a different, it's like my world is good. That was generated out of a need and an idea, out of a deep sense for me of looking at the world going, what the hell? And how is it that how are we living in a world where this select group of people can create a profound amount of negativity in our culture, in our world, in our lives, and there's nothing we can do about that? Like, I'm sitting here in Colorado going, what can I do to affect this? Mm-hmm. And so taking that into my personal space, I'm like, how can I do this? Well, I'm an energetic being. I'm full of energy. I'm filled with it. So how can I use this energy? I don't want to be a politician. I don't want to go work in Washington. I don't want to do that, but I want to affect change. So how do I do that? I use my energy in a way that creates change. And I'm not doing it by attacking anything. I'm doing it by creating another energy strand that people can become a part of, that opens them up instead of shutting them down. And it doesn't require a willpower at all. It simply requires focus. It requires energy. It requires intention. And that's all internally generated energy that I'm calling upon the deepest parts of my energy to send as much love onto the planet as I possibly can, because that I can do. And by doing that, I open myself up to other potential. Now, I don't know what that potential is, because I've given myself over to giving this energy so that I am contributing in a way toward what I want, or toward where I see the benefit could be, could be had. But in that open space, there's tons of potential available. And so now it's a question of, am I going to be inspired to something more, or is this my contribution? Because I can be so firmly and completely in it and sharing that energy that's my contribution right now, today. And as long as I can do that, then at least I'm in a space of offering solution instead of offering resistance.
And as you say that, Jim, what I'm wondering is, from the outside, and I'm just thinking about this, would I know that you created this "my world is good" from the place you described versus with willpower? So from the outside, is it apparent how it came to be?
For me, I have to say yes, and I can't imagine that it would be different, because, and the reason different for anyone else, if you get honest about it, because I don't feel any resistance in "my world is good." I don't, when it happened, when I was in meditation and that happened, it was like those things that I've talked about before, that sort of a block of thought. It's just sort of like, oh, my world is good. Oh, what's that? Push into it. What's that? Oh, okay. I like this. And my energy starts to spin up. And we've talked about this many times.
Yeah.
Spinning up, spinning down. My energy goes woof, 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 woof. And I'm like, oh, okay. I like this. And so the energy of it carries me. I don't carry it. It carries me. It inspires me. So you say, but doesn't that make you, like, how are you in it? No. It's part of the whole connection thing. It's part of doing your work. It's part of understanding the thresholds, the whole idea we've talked about before. If you're standing on this side of a threshold, in stepping into how you can create a better world or life, you're not going to get to see that just by standing in the doorway of your old energy. You can't stand in your old energy and look into new energy and think that you can, and kind of go, oh gosh, I think I can do this from here. You have to surrender the old energy and cross the threshold. You have to surrender the old viewpoint. So in doing that, you create a space, and in creating a space, it's not a will-driven process. It's an inspired-driven process. It's a process that doesn't have resistance in it. And that's the best way I can describe it, at least now, the words that I have. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. And it leads me to believe that what this is about, and excuse me, and the message that we're putting out in the world and sharing with listeners and viewers, it's not that things can't be fixed.
Right.
The emphasis is on the you. It's not the you and your willpower fixing it. It's that things get fixed when you're open to the inspiration and the guidance that comes through. Some people call it God, some people call it spirit, some people call it intuition, whatever label. It's that energy that comes through, or we serve as a channel, mm-hmm. rather than just willing it simply with our own power.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say is that I chose the word fix very specifically too, because fix has multiple focuses of definition. And I always think with words that you can use, you get the fix in, the expression of fixing something is never a sense of it's permanent. It's a sense of, I made it work for now.
Yeah.
I made it work for now. And that's where we've been living for far too long, because that's all you can do in willpower is make it work for now. That's what we're living and existing in. That's what we're seeing all over the planet. It's okay for now. It'll work for this minute. It'll work now because it'll cover my ass until the next term. It'll work now because, right? So or it'll keep my job, or it'll keep me from getting fired, or it'll help me get what I want. All that kind of stuff. I wanted to put up here, Jackie's joining us today. At first she says, hi, Moshe. So I want to say hi. But then she also said something I think it's great. I say it, my world moves new energy. I love that. That really is, because every time I say it, every time you say it, every time you engage my world is good, it's coming from whatever space you're in. And as you focus into the energy, as you focus into appreciation, you begin to emanate, because whatever you're appreciating is expanding. And if you keep changing what you're appreciating, you're adding a whole new level of energy to this that continues to add new energy, which is how it creates a tipping point. Because it's just this constant evolving of the energy that's moving. And none of that is will driven. My world is good. I mean, you could make that a will driven, but there's no how. Without a how can you drive it with your will?
Right.
My world is good. My world is good. My world is good. Okay. You can do it that way. And it's still going to change and evolve because there's no how attached to it. You have to be willing to be inspired by it. You have to be willing to be open to that, to find what's next, to step into what's next.
Yeah.
We just tend to, I think as humans, we've been built into this whole, again, I think the fear base, the fear structure is what propagates all of it. Our relationship to fear is what propagates all of it, because we've been trained to believe that fixing things is a good thing instead of solving problems, instead of solving situations. And so we see the levels of the groups that want to solve versus the people that want to fix. But there's still way too many people who would rather fix than solve.
And I think underneath the fear, there's something else. And thank you, Jackie, for that hello and
yes, thank
your
you.
note. And I just want to invite a frequent listener, Sherry, if you are on and have a moment, chime in. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Hi, Sherry.
But I believe underneath it, when you're talking about the fear, is fundamentally a lack of trust in the universe, in forces bigger than ourselves. And it's so easy to slip into that, where we think we are the power. It's only what we can muster or manifest rather than what can come through us, which is so much greater.
And interestingly enough, to that point, Moshe, I think the thing that we're also seeing is that the giving away of power to God, to Jesus, to the government, to whoever no longer serves a purpose. And I do not mean that in any way to bash anyone or anything. It's just an important distinction to notice that if you are there, you are likely in victim consciousness. You are likely believing you are at the effect of. And while there may be some truth to that, given the circumstances of your life and what you've created, if you are in that space and learning to be in the space of solving problems or finding the way to see it from a different perspective, and that's really where we want to go with this, it's seeing it from that different perspective. You start to go, holy crap, if I'm giving it all to God in one sense can be very powerful, because you are surrendering to something greater than yourself. But that something greater than yourself is something greater than your ego, which is already present in your world, which is who you are, which is the soul and the spark of the divine that you are. So if you can do that and stay connected to yourself, that's a profound place to be, because that is the ultimate surrender. But if you are surrendering to God as something outside of you that manages, empowers you, you have separated yourself from your own power. You've separated for yourself from your ability to solve problems, because you've given it to something else that isn't outside of you. So now you're still at the effect of, God, when are you going to help us with this? God, when are we going to get to here? No. God stands there and holds a space of love and says, when are you going to love yourself enough to stop this? When are you going to love enough to change this? And there's no judgment in that. It's just love. When the presence of love is continuous, you have no choice but to ask the question. Because if love is presented to you and you turn your back on it, who's turning their back? It's not God.
Right.
It's you. You just turned your back on yourself. So I'm going to bring it back down here. So we got in pretty deep pretty quickly. And so there were a couple of things I wanted to share here. Where did I go here? Mind and energy. We were kind of talking about that a little bit. So just before I got on, Moshe, this is hysterical. I was going to do my meditation and I turned on my YouTube channel and there was a commercial and it was Michael Beckwith. And Michael Beckwith said this. It was the only thing I heard. I just laughed out loud. People try to change the world while they stay the same. It's just not possible.
Wow. Wow, that's
I
a
was like,
strong
thank you.
statement.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael, for that contribution to the show today. Extraordinary, because it speaks to the heart of exactly what we're talking about today. This is about, you can't be the change if you aren't the change. And that's not willpower.
Yeah.
You can't associate that with will. So where are we at here? So there's somewhere else that I was talking about, this idea of how do we, so if you can't be in the problem and solve it, where do you go to get at it? Where do you go? Where do you get to from here to get there? And that's where I think the higher brain living piece for me was huge, but also just as a natural part of the experience of my own growth and evolution is this idea of the view from 50,000 feet. And what that means is it's the way that we on a daily basis use our energy, our daily practice, the things that help us to align with the greatest part of ourselves, right? That's really significant, because as you connect to that greater part of yourself, your vision begins to expand. So when you're locked into will, when you're locked into ego, you have a very limited, I'm using my hand to create this sort of telescopic effect, that you are limited very much by what you can see in that world, because will requires a very intent focus into something. And so you have no view of anything else. When you begin to do your daily practice in a regular basis and begin to open up and expand your energy, you change that perspective to where you begin to see, again, from the view, your viewpoint begins to expand, and you begin to see more of the whole picture, and not just the limited picture or the limited thing that your ego is driving you to complete because you think you'll feel better if you get it. When you see the view from 50,000 feet, you go, wow, okay, there's a whole lot more going on here that I don't comprehend or understand. Let me step back and be with this until I'm inspired to something about this. Because it's really easy, I think, to get into this isn't working, let me go do this, because we're trained that protest is the way to go. I'm not saying don't do that, because everybody has their role. Everybody has the thing that inspires them. And for some, that inspiration is, I got to get on the streets and I got to talk to people and I got to say things. And I need to share my vision of how life could be different if we tried something different.
Mm-hmm.
So trust your passion, trust your inspiration, but don't force your inspiration. If you are operating in any of it from a space of anger, stop what you're doing and step back, because anger is not where the solution is. Anger is a part of the energy that created the problem. And if you are in reaction to it, you are having a victim response to it. I'm not saying it's not impacting you, but you can't impact it from that perspective. You have no ability to affect it, because you are overwhelmed by the feelings and the emotions and the need to will it out of existence. That's not where we are in the world right now. That's not where we're going to be a year from now, 2 years from now. It's not where we're going to be. If it is, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
As
you say that, I'm thinking about what I learned when I was doing research for my book, The MRA Wave, and contrasting two paradigms that drive business. One is business is war, one is business is love. And I was looking at the U.S. Marines and their manifesto, and basically the definition of war, and then translate that into business, see how it fits. And one key aspect of the definition of war is that we, and I'm quoting, bend people to our will. That we make them do things to, and I'm using the word will on purpose. We were talking about willpower. And you were just talking about protest, demonstrate, do whatever your passion tells you to do, and stop before it comes to forcing.
Yes.
Because so there's some line there of what's effective and what's not effective. The truth is, we can sometimes force things, and we can force people to do things, or bend people to our will, as the military sometimes says in their description of war. So why not do that?
In the end, I mean, I think we can see that the reason why not happening right now in the world, whether you look at what's happening in Afghanistan, what's happened in Afghanistan, we spent 20 years willing Afghanistan to be a democracy, and look what it accomplished. Absolutely nothing. Not fair. It accomplished something for some of the people in the context of that over the 20 years. But nobody stopped to find out if it was actually creating change, if it was actually creating a shift. Because look at what happened. As soon as the potential was there for that change, it changed instantly. So that the change was never rooted in anything. And that's a tough nut to swallow. You invest all that time and energy, and for the people who were there, who invested the time and energy, it's not an invalidation of your energy. It's not an invalidation of your contribution. And it's certainly not an invalidation of your desire to help create change. It goes bigger than that. It goes much bigger than that, because what you did as an individual, what you did as you touched people, as you reached out, as you offered a helping hand, as you taught, as you engaged with those people and helped them to build a better existence for themselves, you were doing the work of the soul, as it were. You were your God in motion. And whether that was in context of being in government or not being in government really doesn't matter. But in this context, you were a part of a greater whole. That greater whole did not support the change that it said it was looking for, because that was not the change it was looking for. I mean, it's like it's not hard science, and it's certainly not hard math. If it was the result was to create a democracy, we failed miserably, and largely because that's not what the goal was. That's what we were told. That's the words about. That's the willpower saying, look over here, look over here, look over here. Meanwhile, millions and trillions and trillions of dollars are being spent, and people are making a shit ton of money off of this process, and now they're not anymore.
Right.
And that's not, and so now, and again, guys, this is my perception and my perspective, and you're all welcome to your viewpoint of it. I'm talking about it from a purely energetic viewpoint. I don't have a judgment about necessarily the hows of it. It's just look at it for what it is. If you spent your time there, and you spent a lot of time there, rest in what you contributed to that. That still matters, and that still mattered. It's not something you became a part of a greater whole, but what you contributed and how you used your energy is what's really important there. So in your assessments, and it doesn't matter what situation it is, but in your assessment of the process itself, that's where the appreciation, that's where the focus should be, because all of the rest of it is just story that was made up, and you were bamboozled by a bunch of bullshit. And that's okay. It doesn't matter what we do in work. It happens that way. To something you said earlier that I thought was kind of profound. I was thinking about this literally yesterday. Somebody was telling me that it was their day off, and their work called and said they needed to go to work. And I thought to myself, the arrogance that you could invade someone's privacy, even though they're an employee, that you could invade their privacy and demand them to come to work on their time of rest is ridiculous to me. I lived in that world for a long time, but I think it's ridiculous. And I still think it's ridiculous, because it is all about, you do my will, you perform my will, you're doing what I want, and I'm giving you a pittance for that so that you can have a few minutes to do what you want in your world. That's not how to live the life, guys. And that's what's trying to change. That's what's trying to evolve as you look out through the entire landscape of the world. Everywhere you look, you see it happening. Everywhere. It's not isolated. It's everywhere. And so it's that important, in my viewpoint, to get back to center, get back to self, get back to clarity about who and what you are, and then what you can contribute, or how you can contribute. And you may find that there's nowhere that you feel like you can. That's okay. Be with that until it changes. Focus in your life. Focus the love into your world. Focus the growth into your world. Build the tools and the foundational stuff that helps you to find that place where you can be of most value because you know what you bring to the table. And that's your energy.
Love it. And I love, Jim, how you brought it back to the people who served in Afghanistan, our armed forces, and saying there's no shame and there's pride to be had, in fact, in serving as you did.
Absolutely.
And
that's what makes you the hero. That's what makes you spectacular, is you were willing to walk away from your life for a period of time to assist someone else's life. And you did that potentially unconditionally, and you did it. Maybe you didn't call it love, but you cared. You had compassion. You brought energy to people who needed energy that you had. You brought it, and they felt, and they were served by that. Now, whether they pick up the mantle to serve themselves is not your problem.
Right.
It is not your issue. It is not your problem. Not your monkey, not your zoo. Is it disappointing and saddening? Absolutely. Is it? But on the flip side, if you've given it out of that inspiration, then trust the process. Trust the process. Continue to hold them in a space of love, that they can find the best options for themselves now, because you gave them some energy and some support to help them do that. And if they can't pick up that mantle, it's not on you. You did what you could do from where you were with what you had.
Right.
I want to throw this comment up because Jackie has a son who's in the military, and she said that's how her grandson felt until he took a life and saw life taken.
Yeah.
Said he wasn't prepared for that. He wasn't prepared for that experience because he thought he was going to help.
Right.
So, Moshe, we have about 4 minutes before I know you have to depart.
Yes.
I'm loving this conversation. That's why, guys, we didn't take breaks today because we're going to do that here after Moshe leaves, because he had some other thing to do. But I wanted to really chew on this topic in a big way. So where are we? I'm looking at my. So we talk about achieving that view from 50,000 feet. So I talked a lot. I would love to hear your thought, maybe in the intervening minutes here, about the things that have been said and your input into that.
Yeah, it's a big topic, and it's the kind of variation of a lot of the things we've talked about over our shows together. And underneath it is, to me, the same thing of letting go and surrendering and allowing this greater force to come through us, whether we like what it says or where it directs us or not. That's kind of secondary. But we have so much more power when we allow that guidance and that energy to come through us than when we limit our effort to what we can muster on our own, what we've been calling our willpower.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the challenge in this is choosing love over fear.
Every time.
Yes. Choosing love over fear every time.
Yeah.
And I want to suggest to our listeners and viewers to consider that in every decision you are conscious of, you can choose. Is it love or is it fear? Every single time.
Every time. I'll tell you, just as a quick interlude there, I was on my hike yesterday morning, and as I was walking, I found myself, I had thought about a situation and then manufactured an outcome in a matter of seconds, and was dwelling in that outcome that wasn't positive, and that was not driven in love at all. And I caught myself and I went, what are you doing? Just love the situation. Just love it. Why go through all that? Just love it. And that's kind of been my mantra of late. I don't catch it every single time, but I'm catching them more and more regularly and going, holy crap, dude, what are you doing? That's such an automatic thing where you go into your mind and you start to let your mind tell the story, and your mind evolves the story. And next thing you know, you're in this negative space of yuck, because you didn't fill the space with love. And as soon as I stop and fill the space with love, it all goes away. It all dissipates. It all changes, because now I'm not having a viewpoint and I'm not forcing a viewpoint. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, continue.
Yes. Yeah. And that not forcing it is really critical. And I want to share a very simple technique, which is that because I recognize it's easy to say these words, and when dealing with difficult situations, it's sometimes a challenge to practice this kind of letting go and trust and so on. And to me, one technique is to just be the witness.
Mm-hmm.
So like for you, when you were on your hike and recognizing you were creating the story of negative outcomes, you can just you just watch yourself. Oh, look, there I go again. There I'm doing it, and that provides some separation. That the you who's doing that is simply your ego, but it's not the greater you, which is the observer of this process. And being able to create that space means everything. It can make all the difference.
Absolutely can.
Yeah.
What a great way to bring it around. I appreciate that. That was fantastic and a great tool to help our listeners kind of begin to play around in that field there, because it can get a little confusing. When we start to, it seems like we're splitting hairs about the ego and the will. And I can tell you that's just not the case. The difference between the two is like night and day. When you really understand it and you really start to work with it, you really go, what am I doing? Because you're hype, things are going, and the next thing you know, your energy's ratcheting down. And you're like, what just happened? So powerful tool. Bring the love. Brother, thank you so much. I want to honor my commitment so that you can get to yours. Thank you for your time. Can't wait for the next show. Great to see you again.
You too.
And we'll see you all on the other side of this quick break, as I can find. All right. Quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Science of Transformation method, and I can't tell you the difference that it's made in my life.
This program is all about you coming into the greatest form of you. Hey guys, one of the things that makes the science of transformation so powerful is what we were talking about before, is that view from 50,000 feet. As I work with people, I have found over time, and I've been doing this for a lot of years and worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, there's so many things that we use to dumb down who we are. And what the science of transformation is about is changing that relationship with fear, but also beginning to reframe your experiences. Because in my experience, consistently with the human expression, is that when we are confronted with things that we don't comprehend or understand, we tend to look back in history to create a correlation with what's happening. And part of what we do in the science of transformation and reframing is the reframing process is about stop looking backwards. It's about focusing into the present and focusing into where you're going. So that as you experience things, because in my world, when you experience anything, you're experiencing it on a spiral. So you work through different things, you work through different aspects of self. And as you move up the spiral, you'll come back to a similar position on the spiral that you were maybe a year ago. And it feels similar and it looks similar, but it's actually quite different because your energy is very different. And so what the reframing does is helps you to remember that. But the process of the science of transformation is about cracking open that incredibleness of who you are, changing your relationship with fear, and also helping the physiology change to support that. So that's part of how we build the daily practice. It's part of how we build our energy, because what I want to happen in the science of transformation is for you to grow from within. I don't have any band-aids to offer. I don't have any tonic, as it were, to soothe. Not to say that I can't help soothe your situation, but that's not the role. That's not the goal of the game here. That's not the goal of the process. It doesn't mean that it's about being harsh. It's just that it's all about changing focus. It's all about changing your energy, and that all happens from within. And as you do, and as you become stronger in it, as you become more powerful in it, you begin to see the extraordinariness of who you are. And you begin to create all of the things that you have struggled with, because you're now no longer encumbered by the viewpoint of looking back. You're in the present, having an experience, and you're not trying to will yourself into anything. You're building that view from 50,000 feet so that you are available to as much potential and opportunity as you possibly can be. And when you're in fear, you've completely limited yourself in that possibility. So www.thesciencetransformation.com. Check it out. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to work with you. If you're interested, you can reach out to me via email there. We can set up a time to chat to see if this work is right for you and if you feel aligned with what we're doing. And you can also sign up for an introductory package, which is the first 2 sessions. And the first 2 sessions are amazing and really give you a good sense in continuity how this process works. And I think that's very important. So join us. We'll be right back, and we'll close out the show in just a second. So we had a great show today talking about dealing with the reality of you can't fix it, any of it. And where this evolved to was this understanding of it's time to change the platform of will as a way of working through our lives and running our world. And if we look out into the world, into the chaos and confusion and just total upside downness of everything that's going on is forcing us, I believe, in my experience, is pushing us deeper into self. And if you're unwilling to go there, then chances are good you're going to be leaving the planet. It's just the way it's happening, the way it's evolving. You can't live in resistance anymore in that level and still be able to survive the energies and changes that are going on. It's not possible. And so some are choosing to leave. Many are choosing to leave now because they've done their part, they've contributed, or they're just not prepared to take the steps into this, quote, kind of awakening new change that's happening. But the change is on every level of our experience. So it becomes more and more important that we figure out how to create it from our own heart, that we figure out how to stand in our own truth and be in our experience and in our power, offering what we can from where we are with what we have. And that's all you can do. But I ask you to shift that out of the fear-based willpower into that opportunity-based inspiration, into that space of connection, because you're doing the work to support who you are in the world. And that as you do that work and you become more of who you are, you begin to affect everything around you. And that's how we create positive change, because we begin to step in those places. And everyone, because we have unique gifts, everyone who does that then begins to shine in their own right and can step out however they need to, because they're inspired to do it. And that inspiration leads to the next inspiration, leads to the next change, leads to the next inspiration. And it's an evolution of powerful, powerful change, because we're infusing love in every step, because we're not accessing fear, we're accessing love, and we're sharing that and moving it forward on the planet. And I mean, you can think of it as kumbaya or whatever you want to think of it as, but I trust me on this one. Here's an exercise I'd like you to do just for the sake of understanding what I mean by this. Pick anytime during your day, anywhere, wherever you are. It seems to be that it's always best to try it when you're working, because that's when we tend to generate a lot of nonsense in our brain, but it doesn't matter. Just pick any one. Choose to get conscious about that situation somewhere along the way, whatever you're choosing. And when I say get conscious, I mean look at it for what it is, so that you can see what your mind is doing, right? Because 80 to 90% of what you're thinking is made up. It may have factual data included, but most of it is story that's made up based on history and based on belief systems. And what I want you to do is be aware of that. And then when you become aware of it, move it in front of you, look at it clearly, and then just surround it in love. Just consciously choose to open your heart and fill the space with love and see what changes. I guarantee you it will change in a way that you had not anticipated, and in a way that you will feel the ease of what love can create for you when you shift into solution. That's where you find your joy. So I encourage you to get out there and find your joy, guys. However you do that, I hope this show helps you with that. I hope you're able to find the tools that you need to step into an even greater version of yourself. I love you and appreciate you. I thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Adventures in Truth. And again, get out there and find your joy. I appreciate you all very much. And on that note, I have to, they've changed my inside here, so I have to find my my show end. Great to see you all. We'll see you next time on Adventures in Truth. Remember to like, share, and get it out there. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Adventures in Truth Livecast. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you'd like to learn more about Jim's book, Fear is a Choice, Unraveling the Illusion of Our Separation from Love, check it out at www.fearisachoicebook.com. Also check out Moments of Truth, a new offering from Adventures in Truth. If you'd like to work with Jim, check out www.thesciencetransformation.com to book a session. Tune in live every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time and every Friday, 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Or look for our new releases and podcasts every Monday. Until next time, be well, and we'll see you again on Adventures in Truth Livecast.